I thank the Parliamentary Secretary. The question is that the document be noted. I give the call to the member for Chifley.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. I was very heartened. I don't ordinarily like following the member for Riverina because it means I have to listen to his speech, but I'll listen to those type of speeches every day. They are demonstrating the genuine bipartisan commitment to this area, the recognition that we need to work together across the community to address some of the really difficult issues that are very intractable, very hard to get movement on, but they have to be subject to an annual report in the way that closing the gap speeches are delivered by Prime Ministers, regardless of political complexion, because we can't forget it. For too long these problems have been forgotten. They've been too easy to neglect, and they shouldn't be. And so we do need to be able to get focus on these issues. Now, we'll have disagreements from time to time. We have, and we've expressed them. I mean, as much as this pains some of those opposite to hear, we genuinely feel we understand the commitment that's been applied and has been expressed by those who stand on that side of the House and speak about this issue. But just understand from our point of view, having known how difficult this is to deal with, that we do have concerns when those budget cuts go, because how do you make it? How do you actually make progress with those cuts if they are to eventuate? Now, those opposite will say, well, that's not actually running in the way you say. That's an argument we'll both prosecute across this table, and I appreciate that. But the main thing is, the good thing is, not the argument itself, but the fact that we're talking about it, and the fact that we want to commit resources to it, the fact that we want to work with communities on it, and the fact that we want to see something better than what generations have been stuck with for years before. And this is something that we should find common ground to work on. Chifley, the seat that the Parliamentary Secretary reflected on that I'm proud to represent, is home to 6,000 of our First People, of Aboriginal people. And in an urban environment, it's one of the largest. So I'm enormously humbled that we're on Darug land, and I'm enormously proud to represent the concerns of people from my area in this place. And certainly when I travel through the electorate, and we are trying to do our best to work more and more to recognise and to celebrate the various cultures, because it's not just the Darug people, we're home to people who've come from all over New South Wales to make Western Sydney and in particular Chifley home. I was particularly proud as a member of the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Affairs that we had the report last year in Aboriginal language, because I think as a bridge between generations but also a connection to culture, when you see how many Aboriginal languages are lost in this country, this is a central part of identity that is going before our eyes. And so particularly for young Aboriginal people who don't have a connection to their culture principally through dialect, this is a big issue. And so the fact that we could have more and more of our local sites named in the local Aboriginal dialect is important, not just as a mark of recognition of respect, but it's important also for the survival of dialect and to be able to build stronger identity, which I would argue is actually one of the big things that holds us back in making progress. So I certainly commend that work, and these were difficult. For a Prime Minister to deliver these figures, it is hard, and particularly I give credit to the fact that the Prime Minister is very committed in this area, and it would be hard to make these reports back, particularly in terms of the 7 target areas where we've only had progress in 2 that are on track to be met. That is halving the gap for 20 to 24-year-old Indigenous Australians in Year 12 attainment and halving the gap in mortality rates in Indigenous children under 5. We're on track to meet those, and that's excellent. But closing the 10-year gap in life expectancy between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians by 2031, not on track. Halving the gap in unemployment outcomes between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, not on track to be met by 2018. And these are big issues, particularly in Chifley, where unemployment in the 15 to 64 age group is about 18% or 3 times the national average. Simply unacceptable. I mean, we should not bear this whatsoever. Halving the gap in reading, writing and numeracy is also not on track to be met by the 2018 target, and these are big issues. We certainly do need to be able to ensure that we're committed more and more to following this up, To be honest, I actually think that we shouldn't just have a yearly report on this. Where we do have concerns, where we're falling behind, we should have quarterly updates, frankly, because you do wonder how progress is being made through the course of the year, and in the period where we believe we're not doing as well as we should have quarterly reporting on this, and then when we get to a situation where we believe we're satisfied with progress, then revert to annual. But if we're serious about making headway on these things, we do need to commit more resources. Now, the Close the Gap, I was thinking of this the other day when my friend and colleague, the member for Throsby, referred to the visit by the Joint Select Committee for Constitutional Recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And we did have some, it was a very difficult consultation insofar as you had a range of different views expressed, some very difficult. But there is this constant argument that we're confronted with, Mr Deputy Speaker, when it comes to this area, and that is, you know, what good is it to have recognition in the Constitution if we're having all these problems where people can't get a job, they're not literate, they're incarcerated way more? Why don't we make progress on that? Which I understand. But the actual recognition within the Constitution is important because we have the first people of our nation are excluded from the principal document that founds this nation. And I don't think this is an issue of debate between our two sides. But there is an issue fundamentally of, aren't we able to do both? Aren't we able to actually recognise within our Constitution the first peoples of this nation, plus improve the things that are holding them back from their progress? That's what Close the Gap does. This is a constant requirement for us as a parliament, as a nation, to make headway on these things. And this is important for us to do, as is recognition. But again, this is hotly debated, and I understand the reasons for that debate. But we should be able to work, the head and the heart should be able to work together on these type of things, and we should be able to make progress. And so I think it is important that we redouble our efforts in this area. There is one other thing that was mentioned to me on the weekend that I want to end on, if I may, Mr Deputy Speaker. And while I was at these consultations at Edmonton on Sunday, and I want to thank the Mount Druitt and Districts Reconciliation Group, who do a tremendous job. They actually hosted the event on Saturday and do a fantastic job. I've hosted since 1998 the Reconciliation Walk in Chifley, tremendous bunch of people. But I had an Aboriginal elder come up to me on the weekend, and he said to me he was very concerned about what was happening to a centre which is outside the Chifley electorate called Murrumirruga. Now, Murrumirruga is in Darug, it's a Pathway to Friends, and it's an Aboriginal cultural and education centre, and it's based in Castlereagh in the member for Lindsay's seat, and I know that she is quite involved with them. What they do is they advance Aboriginal culture, they improve economic and social capacity of the Aboriginal people in our area, they empower meaningful participation to enhance their role as traditional custodians. They're involved in training and employment for natural resources management, mine and broadacre rehabilitation. They also train in retail and customer service, and they provide a cultural renewal opportunity as well, and financial counselling. So they do some great things. Now, the elder that approached me said, "Have you heard what's happening to Murrumirruga?" And I said, "No." And he said to me, "They're closing it," which floored me. I don't know why we'd have this closed. I didn't know if it was a funding cut or what was going on. Now, it turns out that there's actually a lot of work being done in the Penrith Lakes parkland to redevelop it, and there's a draft vision plan in place. Now, I certainly know, and others certainly appreciate, the issues confronting the Penrith Lakes development and that site. There's a lot of issues there that are not easy to deal with. But Murrumirruga has been told that they've got until May and then they need to relocate. Now, you understand, again, in the process of this, that these things happen, but they've been given no place to relocate. Now, on that stream of things that I've mentioned that they're doing, they're providing important activities, some of which are at the heart of what we're discussing today. For them not to be told where they're going next puts enormous pressure on them. And so I certainly call on the Baird government in recognising, and I think I try to be as fair as I can, in recognising the challenge that they have in dealing with this through the Department of Planning. I urge them to find a place for Murrumirruga. They are going to be disrupted enough as it is through the move. They are doing fantastic work across Western Sydney and providing a very important platform for Aboriginal people across our area, and I just hope we can find a place for them to move. to have less disruption, make it smooth as possible, and allow them to do their work, because these are people who are actually helping us in the case for closing the gap. And I commend the report to the House.